What Robert Saltzman is perceptions, feelings, thoughts, emotions, beliefs. I can't stand outside of myself and judge anything. This is it. What the caterpillar calls my death, the rest of the world calls a butterfly. Robert's experience is that Robert has to keep dying. You're just distracted from seeing this thing. It's very clear. The story we tell ourselves is really buffed up. If I could see myself without that story, everything would really be okay. But it's just scary. Because you don't know what will happen when you awaken. You don't know. In my case, I lost my art career. It was gone. It went away. I'm not sorry it went away. I don't really recommend this to anyone. If you are happy in the life you have now, don't try to awaken. You won't like it. It's only for people who really feel that something is not as it should be. Who am I? Who is this I that is dissatisfied? But once you ask yourself that question, it's a big question, and it may not end for quite a while, and you may have to go through a lot before you get an answer to that, if you ever do. I can't make you awaken. I can manifest that, manifest it constantly. And then when you start asking me about it, I can tell you what it isn't. And then when you come to me claiming to be awake, which is what happens, I can tell you, no, you're not. This isn't it. You may think it's it. You may feel good. You may think you're better than the people around you, but that's not it. What can be known and how can it be known? That's what each human being needs to find out, assuming that that person wants to be what we're calling awake. The secret is in there. If I could only decipher it and decode it enough. Really? You believe that? I'm not criticizing the teachers. They have a role to play, and the role to play is to keep you entertained so that you don't awaken. That's why people pay the money. They don't want to get into something really deep. Sitting on a stage describing how blissful it is to be awake. No, it isn't. They believe they're doing something good. They believe they have found something and they want to share it. And they're lying, but they're making a living. And I understand that because it's quite painful actually to see things as they are. It's not such an easy matter. We especially don't know what any of this is. No one knows how any of this got here. None of it. May call that not knowing God, but hanging a name on the incomprehensible does not make it real. It doesn't make it any realer than it is, and it doesn't explain anything. Nobody knows anything about how any of this got here, where it's going, what's it for, what it is. None of that. That's unknown. In the moment that one really understands human limitation and stops imagining that Ramana or whoever got it really knows, really knew, as soon as that fantasy, I call it, disappears, you are awake and you won't be going back to sleep anymore. A lot of people say they want to be awake, but they really don't want that. What they want to do is improve the life they have. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't criticize that. It's fine. If that's what you want and you know that's what you want, you won't become confused. I only have one question. What's wrong with now? What's wrong with waking up right now? Why should I give up this one life I have? Why should I spend this life seeking when I can live? And instead of dealing with my pain by getting on a path with a promise that if I follow this eventually, then I'll feel okay at the end. Maybe there's a way to feel okay about it right now. Maybe I've never even tried that. This is it. The next moment will be something else. It keeps changing, it keeps flowing. There isn't anything else. And yet I'm telling you that I have no questions and I'm satisfied. There's nothing else. I can't become something. That would never occur to me. This moment is so rich. This moment is amazing. It really is. Welcome, everyone. I'm Robert Saltzman, and this is meeting number 8 of the virtual gathering at Doughty. You hearing me? Oh, meeting 7. Yes? Yes. It's meeting 7. Thank you. It's meeting 7 of the gathering at Todos Santos 2021. And I have a great panel with me today. It's heartwarming to see them all. Before introducing them, a couple of announcements. The last meeting, which is tomorrow night, Sunday, at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is an open meeting, free to anyone who wants to join until we run out of space or bandwidth. And the logon for that meeting is found on my webpage. You can find the webpage just by Googling my name. Go there, and there's a page called The Gathering, and it's got the logon if you're interested in that. The other thing is I've been getting messages asking me to do these meetings on a regular basis. And I might be willing to do that. I'm still considering it because, as I said in the last meeting, the idea of creating some kind of scene around myself is not that appealing. And I thought doing it for a week is good. Maybe doing it all the time isn't. And so I'll just consider that. But thank you for the votes of confidence. I do appreciate that. And so the panel for today, Michael Kobler is there. Are you in Austria at the moment, Michael?
Yes, I'm in Austria, in Vienna.
Okay. Jeffrey Scott, where are you located, Jeffrey?
I'm in Minnesota. We had our first snow emergency today.
Well, that sounds like fun.
It was fun.
I always liked the snow days in school. Those were the special days. I grew up in a snowy place. Sterling Doughty, you're in Switzerland, am I right?
Yes, just outside of Zurich.
Beautiful. Here in my same little town as sorry. We have, in addition, Elena Ascencio Ibáñez was here in Todos Santos for the week. Pleasure to have her here. I've got John Troy. There you go. You're back.
Hi, I had to move.
And okay, you're in good shape there. And John is in Jamaica near Ocho Rios. Beautiful spot. So we're from all over the world here. This is beautiful. And we can just continue with the meeting. I have nothing special to say, so let me throw the meeting over to Sterling.
Well, thank you. Here it's been snowing on and off. And as you know from the pictures I sent you, I have a lot of action with my bird visitors at my little restaurant that I run for hawks and other birds. So that's about the only thing. Everyone here is pretty much bored with the latest of the COVID endless series there. Yes, that's Mr. COVID there, I think, there on the screen. And I don't have too much special that I wanted to say either this evening. I was pretty pleased with the meeting I attended before. And I wanted to mention a little bit of, I'm an admin on the don't string. And as mentioned before, it's sort of been taken over by the guy I call the Shiv, which I think is a little bit unfortunate, but I didn't, I made a comment about what I felt was his presumptuousness, and it's almost condescending in a way, but I didn't delete him in any way, because I think if people are interested, want to hear him, that he should say stuff, but then he should also answer questions when people put them to them, which he doesn't seem to do if he's not happy with the questions. That's all in that, so that I don't go further with that. Robert invited him to participate here, but my feeling is he doesn't want to participate in an environment that he doesn't have better control of. But that's just my viewpoint.
Well, you know, I like to give people enough rope to hang themselves.
Yes, okay. Understood. Me too. It's only in extremis that things need to be controlled. I think people should be able to see what people have to say, and then try to really understand. Are they really telling me something that's really valid, or it's worth discussing in depth, or is just somebody who's invented a whole new version of reality and is calling it the ultimate truth, which is what I was feeling in that particular case. But here I hope we just have a nice discussion, and if anybody has any particular thing, I leave it open to participation. Yeah.
Well, Sterling, that was a clever remark, enough rope to hang themselves. That's not really what I feel about all that. what I feel is that Shiv does tend to pontificate, and that's a bad habit, but he also comes up with some good stuff. And so it's kind of worth having him around.
Fine.
It's, in fact, it's a challenge to discuss these things without getting on a high horse. It's not that easy,
That
especially,
is true. Yes.
especially when people keep putting you there, which is happening to Shiv. I mean, he has a lot of people who think he's the coolest thing since sliced bread, you know, and that can be overstimulating. So I just try to understand that he's a young guy, he's kind of excited, and it's easier to be glorified when you're old and have to wake up every morning and face it.
I had the same intuition that Sterling has. I thought Shiv was using the platform for his own agenda. And when he took down his AA site, that he was coming on to this platform like it was the AA site, rather than engaging with the conversation. I agree with Sterling. I had that same impression.
So there's the practical question, John, because Sterling and I are the admins of that page. So time to pull the lever on the commode, or no?
Yeah, I mean, if it's diversionary from the subject matter and the conversation and the spirit of the the give and take here, then he's clawing a position that you're articulating, and that's kind of what I noticed.
Okay.
But I like a lot of the things he says too.
Yeah, that's
He's a pretty bright guy, but not all of it.
right. Okay, I'm taking this under advisement. And,
Okay, I did think of something now that we have that little prelude put into perspective, and that it has to do with being yourself. And I have a slight disagreement with the way it's been discussed in this sort of forum, if you will, a larger forum, in that people take it in the wrong way. It seems that it's one of these questions that's very important to me in terms of what people mean. What definition do you mean? Like someone like, I'll put it on extreme terms, Trump is just being himself. So people say, well, just be yourself. He says, I am being myself. What to me being yourself is a deeper level of the natural being, this kind of awakened person that should be the natural outcome of an adult. But in fact, most people never go back to being themselves. I mean, themselves as they were when they were born. They grow up in the kind of the ego attitude or the ego identification, and they really think that's all of it. Whereas I think what we're trying to see is that we have a personality or an ego, if you want. There's a certain identification with that. It's necessary to live in the real world. But then there's this impersonal side, the more awake side, the side that sees that we're part of something much, much larger than ourselves as individuals. And that natural being, to me, is being yourself, not just catering to your identification. So I don't really dispute what I hear, but it's that the language allows people to kind of get a misperception of what this natural being or being yourself or an awakened adult person is. Do you understand what I'm trying to get at here? It's more a question of definition and how people see these things and how they identify with the words themselves, but they have different concepts of what it means.
what do you make of that, Elena? Would you comment?
I'm still thinking.
Okay. Well, I'll comment. When I say all you can ever be is yourself, that takes in both Trump and Robert Saltzman. There's really no choice. I mean, you wake up in the morning and the world is there along with all your attitudes, all your fears, all your desires. It's just there. And there's, although people imagine you can somehow jump out of that and fix it, when I look within myself, I don't have that power. I can have feelings. I can have feelings that discourage me from doing certain things, but I didn't make those feelings. That's the problem. And there's no expert in my world who can fill me in and tell me, Robert, you mustn't think that, you mustn't do this. I don't find any expert there. I find a kind of roughshod morality that is part of me, and I refer to it like most of us, but I didn't create that either. Somehow that's just part of the, it's part of the mix. So I don't, that's why I discourage people from trying to awaken spiritually, because I think what happens when you try that is you enter into a trance of
I would
splitting.
agree with you. You can't try to do it, but
No.
it can happen. Like you say, I'm awake and I know it. I mean, at some
Yeah.
level, of course, we all have the potential for awakening inside, or realization, whatever you want. But I think there's a difference between yourself, for example, who is awake and knows it or claims it, and somebody who just believes that the entire world revolves around them as a person in a physical body.
Mhm. Well, that
I'm trying to get at in terms of definition.
that statement, I'm awake and I know it, has really provoked a tremendous amount of upset. Yeah, there was just controversy the other day where someone was saying, if you say you're awake, you aren't, and referred to Stephen Bodian, a quote from Stephen Bodian, who said that pretty much, if you say you're awake, you aren't. Well, it's so ironic because I know Stephen pretty well. He lived here for 2 years and he wrote one of his books during that time, and he and I used to hang out and discuss these things. So obviously he considered himself awake because he was writing a book about this. So yes, if he didn't want to stand up and say, I and the Buddha are the same, okay, he gave himself a break. But people, the guy who quoted Stephen Bodian is profoundly hypnotized. I mean, either Stephen Bodian is an expert on this, and so you can quote him, which means that he's awake if he knows what it is, or he's not an expert on it. He's not awake in this sense, and why quote him? I just feel, I don't feel like anybody when I look into my depths. And I think that's what the Buddha was saying exactly. He said it's empty. When I look at the self, it's empty. Now, it's really strange for somebody to make a big deal out of Robert Saltzman saying, yeah, this personality's here and everything, and I got my likes and dislikes, but when I really look at it, I can't find anything. It doesn't seem to have any fixed characteristics, except the program that was laid out on top of it, see, by DNA and by parents and all this. Other than that, I don't know. And I call that awake. The problem, Sterling, is that these people who criticize that, they don't want that to be awake. They want awake to be something else entirely, where they have no more doubts, no more fears, no more desires, no more anything. I don't know what they imagine, that you just, just floating through space on one beam of light or something, and they really imagine that there is such a.
No, but that's, for me, that never ever happened at all. All that really happened in my awakened state is that certain things disappeared. You say the Buddha said it was empty. It's just that there were no more questions, and there's no more me in the sense of a sense of me looking out at something else. All of the person's personal stuff in that point disappears. And I understood it more in the Gurdjieffian sense, is that it's kind of a level of vibration. I think I mentioned last week or whatever it was. It's like the difference between water and steam. they're both the same thing, but they're a kind of a different perspective. One's a higher vibration than the other, not a better vibration, but just a more perceptive one because it moves quicker. It sees more clearly. It's less attached. That to me is the distinction that I see in my regular life. Is that when I'm really awake, then who I am, that these identifications, the name, all that kind of stuff, all that disappears. There's no more questions. You don't even think about the self or the non-self. It doesn't appear as an issue anymore. So it's very clean and nice. And then sometimes you just have to go back and get on the train, make sure you have your ticket and whatever.
Oh, but you want me to speak?
No, I don't care. I'm just watching and see if something happens. I don't know.
I was just, it's okay to have some dead air. Ricardo will snip it out when he makes the official documents.
I thought everyone was
No,
paralyzed.
I was just waiting. I've spoken a lot already. I wanted to give everyone a chance to chime
Yeah,
in.
I want to share some thoughts here, if I may.
Sure.
Let's see if I can put this in order. I think that the most important aspect, at least in my experience, is really to find, or it was for me to find my own mind. And in the process, I can remember how frightening sometimes that could be. And in retrospect, I can see how distracted I became, entangling myself into these questions that do not really have an answer, and just going over and over and over. And looking back, I think all that was just a distraction, because I was too frightened to actually see what myself was. And also in the process, I caught myself not wanting to show, present, or even be certain ways, aspects of myself. Like I would like to present only the mature and the wise one, but there's a very immature, insecure, ignorant one that's also part of myself. So for me, the true myself is all of them, because sometimes I'm not that clever, sometimes I'm not that wise. I make tons of mistakes every day, and that's just part and parcel of myself. So I don't think that the myself is only the awakened one or whatever. It is the human one that will act right and sometimes wrong. That's me. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's been like going around in my head.
Well, I think that's a great statement, Elena, because what you're saying is that you don't split yourself into pieces.
Not anymore, Robert, because I don't feel the need. I guess when I did it, it was because that's what was needed for my survival or for my functioning or whatever. I just happen to not need to do it anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, Robert Hall would speak about the top dog and the underdog. And I've pointed this out in my writing too. I got it from him. Well, I got it from Fritz Perls, but Robert reminded me of it. So many of us have this dialogue going on, and you can see it in the spirituality cult, where people are telling themselves, what, you looked at that girl's ass? You're not there yet. You're not there yet. And they'll see that we will catch ourselves doing ordinary stuff, masturbating, for example, which most of us do or have done a lot of in life. And we'll say, I wouldn't be doing this if I were really awake. But see, awake is when you notice yourself doing it and it's okay. That's what I call awake, when you're okay being you, because you understand that you have no choice and you can't fix this. And I think what you're saying is there's this tendency when you imagine yourself as a student of spirituality to try to avoid the bad parts and just keep the awakened part. But
Yes.
yes, so what you pointed out is very useful. It's a good understanding for people who are just catching on to this and are hoping to find some freedom. The freedom is acceptance of oneself. That's the best you can do. I mean, there isn't anything beyond personality. See, okay, I'll just go into this for a bit. Got someone else in my life who wants to imagine that there's something beyond personality, as he calls it, just transcend your personality. And that is such a false path. I can't help saying that. If you tell someone that, they're going to start ignoring parts of themselves. Now, those parts may be shitty, but in that shit is some gold nuggets. And so if you're not willing to move around some of that shit and see what else is there, you're cutting a big part of yourself off. And then if you feel that you have attained spirituality, it'll be this kind of stiff-necked spirituality where you're always kind of at war with yourself for being human. See, and we need to get over that. This is my point. Just be you. Be you. Whatever that is, we don't know what it is. We'll never figure it out. It's too vast. It's too open. Yes, Michael Kobler, you're nodding. Can you add something?
Yeah. I mean, life beyond personality is a topic which I'm aware of. I'm doing the design and the layout of the book, which was translated in German, as I also did the design of the cover and the layout of the book, of your book, of the 10,000 Things, which was translated to German. But what I wanted to say is that, it's in the back. It's beautiful.
Here's your work, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's it.
That's beautiful.
Love it.
Yeah.
So what my experience in the last few months was that I got a sense of the vastness of reality, so to speak, that I couldn't comprehend how this all works actually. So my brain always tries to comprehend and to categorize and to travel in this psyche and to explore it. I'm a very curious person, and when I lost the sense of I will get it somewhen or somehow, I started to feel more centered, and I started to forget that I have to get somewhere. So life beyond anything is just life, you know. I mean, I don't know how to explain it better. And I have a quote, maybe I find it. It says, because I am who I am, I acted as I did, but I could have acted differently, but then I would have had to be someone else, and that's not possible. So
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Robert, I'd love to, if I could jump in here for a second. On this top dog, underdog thing, I'd love to relate just a short experience and then ask you a question about that. Not recently, within the last few months, I've had an experience that of waking up in the middle of the night, and the initial impulse is, oh my God, this is wrong. I shouldn't have had that coffee. I shouldn't have had the wine. Oh, why did I do that? And then the thoughts go further, like, oh, I'm going to be wrecked tomorrow and I won't be able to get back to sleep, blah, 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 blah. After some of the, I think the thought actually came from you, but so I woke up, and this a few months ago, and had a thought that's just, the thought drifted by that isn't right, that isn't, that I didn't wake myself up of course I'd love to sleep through the night. I'm not to blame. There's no criticism here at all. And that seemed to kind of give me an entirely different experience of being awake in the middle of the night, which I had never quite had, which actually turned out to be kind of pleasurable. And the next day didn't seem to be terrible. And what I'm wondering is, it seems that it was a thought that came from reading your books that changed kind of the course of some of the other thoughts, or kind of put an end to them. And is that correct thinking, or that seems to be what happened? It seemed to be a good experience. I loved waking up then thereafter in the middle of the night. It didn't matter at all. I focused on the pillow or the sounds of the creaking house or the person next to me. But I'm wondering if I'm correct in thinking that the one thought stopped the other thoughts or changed the other thoughts.
Yeah, well, if I write something and you read it, that is you. It's not me. You don't know what I was feeling and thinking when I wrote that. You know what you felt and thought when you read it. And as soon as we understand that, we can begin to see the vastness of it. It's all me. There's no getting out of that. Whatever happens is you. Whatever you think is you. Whatever you feel is you. It's not me. It's not Robert. I've got my own world. And in my world, your words are part of me. I don't think your words are you. You have a you, I assume, because I have one, so I assume that everyone else does too. It's an assumption, but you could all just be in the matrix or whatever. I know that. So there's no ultimate reality that Robert Saltzman can come into contact with, which is why all the spiritual teaching is bullshit, where they say, I'm in the absolute, come on, it's boring, childish. So the point is that if you are attracted to reading one of my books, it's your good taste that provided you with that information. And yeah, I hope everyone knows I'm joking. I love my books.
But Robert, regardless of where the thought came from, is it correct thinking that it changes the future thoughts, that one thought will cause different experience to happen? Is that right?
Well, causality is very complicated. I don't think we really can get to the bottom of it. I mean, there may be no such thing as time at all, and we just crawling around on something that already exists. For all we know, it could be that way. I'm not suggesting that it's that way, but it's possible. And we would have, for example, if an ant gets on a picnic table, that person may think that the mayonnaise caused the ham sandwich because they got to the mayonnaise first, but that would be incorrect.
You can also see
there. So if you read a book and start to understand your mind in a different way, it's not clear to me that the book caused that. What I would say is your mind is there and for you to discover. This was what Elena was saying, find your own mind. So these conversations or books or whatever it is, maybe they provoke that understanding, maybe they don't. Maybe all of this is just unfolding as it must, and there's no causality at all. I just don't know. And so, see, I wish these people who criticize me would understand how much I don't know. I really do. I don't know anything about all that. I just know that I wake up in the morning, the world is here, and I have to deal with it. And I don't think spirituality, so-called, will help me to deal with it. So I'm not interested in that. I'm just not. I'm interested in science. I'm interested in history and psychology and philosophy. These are things that a human mind can actually work with. These other ideas, God made you do it or something, I can't cope with that. I don't know what it is. I don't know if that answers your question or not, Jeffrey.
Well, yeah, I mean, Sterling said that certain things disappeared, and from that time forward, that was 6 months ago, that kind of anxiety from waking up has just kind of disappeared. It kind of doesn't do its thing anymore, but it makes me very curious as to why it used to do its thing, and what this series of thoughts that would kind of increasingly be more and more negative and you know, I don't know, yes, I'm happy they're gone, but I'm thinking, wow, how did that even happen in the first place, that that I would go from waking up to this and this. The thoughts were not real. They didn't really comport the reality. They were scary things. They were frightening and worst case scenario things that would cause more anxiety and more sleeplessness. Well,
you know. Okay, so you read my book and you find an easing of anxiety. Someone else reads the book and it makes them anxious. I mean, I've had that experience a lot. There are people who are really angry with me. I don't know if you understand that. It's so strange. I mean, I hear from them. You know,
somebody has to be responsible, Robert. Why not you?
Yeah, well, you know what I feel sorry for those people, because what they have done is completely disempowered themselves. They're saying, I'm so weak and Robert Saltzman is so strong that if he says something and I'm out of control, he made me anxious. See, it's Robert's fault. He made me anxious. You're canceling yourself when you do that. You're just canceling yourself. I mean, make an effort, please. If I say something that's upsetting, look into it. And just a reflection on what you were saying, Jeffrey, if I were one of these talking heads, spiritual teachers, there'd be a stock answer to your question. And that's what I refuse to lapse into stock answers, but I could easily say, it was your time to awaken. And see, people like that. They like the idea that someone knows the answers to these questions, not only that they know when your time has come and can tell you. You see, these are the stupid answers that we get from these people.
Well, then you should send them the bill afterwards. That's the incompleteness of your system, is that after you tell them it was their time, then in the mail, they should get in a 9 Solemnschein, a payment slip, and then they pay you for it and everybody's happy, no?
Well, I did that for a long time. That was my profession.
That's right.
My profession was speaking with people about their problems and getting paid. It was a worthwhile profession, but I don't want to be in that profession anymore. I'm retired. I need a rest. I don't want to be responsible for other people. Don't. When you're a psychotherapist, you take on a lot of responsibility. I had a guy who was suicidal and he came to me maybe 20, 25, 30 times, more than half a year. And one day he didn't come. And I started to feel a bit concerned. Next week, same thing, didn't come to his regular appointment. And I started to think, this guy has committed suicide on my watch. I feel terrible. And this went on for several months. And then I ran into the guy in the street and I said, how are you? What's going on? Why didn't you come to your appointment? He said, oh, well, you helped me and that's all I needed. No thought about maybe I should have told you that I'm done or something. No, not. And I had really suffered. Well, so I'm not willing to do that anymore. I don't want anybody to pay me. And now I really have to solve your spirituality problem. That's crazy, man. I don't want it. And the ones who are charging won't take that responsibility. I mean, my first critique that I really came up with was one of these grinning idiots who would have people come up to a microphone and start talking about their lives. And he would encourage them to go deeper and deeper into it, and they end up crying and everything. And then he just, okay, next one. He didn't know how to put someone back together again for the street, which is a big part of psychotherapy training. Yes, you encourage the person to break down and, go deep, but then you take the last 10 minutes of the session to help them recompose so they can just go out and, deal with reality. These people don't do that at all. They send out these wide open people with all these spiritual fantasies into this cruel world where you have to kind of be on the qui vive and watching out for problems. No, these people are just hypnotized. And
this is a very important, Rob, I think what you're saying here is really quite important, but not necessarily in this, as well as in the psychotherapy thing, but a number of the groups, I was involved with several, world-saving, transformational schools, whatever you call it, the Eureka Institute or the Rajneesh stuff or the Scientology and so on. They often did that, is that they took people in and then kind of destroyed their belief structures and, told them that they would be going on, and then they would just kind of leave them there without the mechanisms they had to cope. Those were destroyed, but they weren't replaced with something that was enabled them to live better, fuller lives. And I think a lot of these cults do exactly that with people. They strip away the kind of illusions that come from religion or beliefs or the personality stuff, but they don't really have or understand that any tools or anything else. So they just leave people kind of naked in the world. And it's a very destructive thing. And they're out of that in the group that first one I was in, we had out of a group of 72 people, I think it was, we had 3 suicides. And that's a pretty high ratio of people that came in that were functional human beings in society. And then when they left, they had their illusions stripped, but they hadn't been given some kind of context in which, and this is what you're talking about, I think, about the psychotherapists who take the people apart, but then don't put them back together before they put them out on the street again.
yeah, I wasn't talking about the psychotherapist doing that. I was talking about, not mentioning names anymore, but this guy would sit there, and he's, they're all so perfect. And the people sitting at their feet are the ones with the problems. See, I don't really think it works that way. I think when we're really honest and look into ourselves, we'll find enough pain there and enough suffering to occupy us without trying to fix other people by waving a wand. See, that's not what it's like. When I entered into psychotherapies with people, there was a great deal of suffering on my part, not just on theirs.
Right. That was you're probably unusual in that respect for some of the ones that I've met in that field.
Oh, my teachers were great people. They made sure that I was equipped properly before they gave me a degree and turned me loose on the world. They really did. I had to strip down pretty naked with these people before they.
And you were an amazing one, Robert. I know that from experience.
Oh,
the best I've ever dealt with. Amazing.
Well, Elena was an old client. I was never allowed to say that, but she just did. And we had a wonderful time together. We had a great time. No, you're allowed to say it. You're allowed to tell anything you want. I'm not allowed to tell anything.
No, I just wanted to say, because you know how much I appreciate the work you did with me, and just say that out loud. You were an amazing therapist.
Oh,
and I'll forever be grateful.
Oh, thank you. That's so good to hear. And I'm so proud of you too. I mean, come on, look how great you are. Yeah. Well, wow, Mutual Admiration Society. I want it every day of my life. Sure.
Okay, let me see. We have a comment here from the chat. It's more than a question. It's a comment. Stephanie DeLuca says, what should I care about what other people's conceptual framework is? Language can't describe reality anyway, so it's not my business how others are using language to describe where they are.
Yeah, well, maybe that's an implied criticism of my deconstructing what other people say. I don't know if it is or not. But if it is, I do care what people say. If one of these Proud Boys tries to say that there's too many dark-skinned people in the US, I'm going to stand up and tell him you're full of shit, man. That's just human. And I feel that way about the spirituality world. I didn't ask to have that put in this world. There's all these liars that are talking about something that they don't know about and can't know about. And so I'm just going to say, from my point of view, that's all bullshit. And I know people don't like hearing that, but it's bullshit. It's really bullshit. Bullshit means when you believe something without a good reason and then start telling other people to believe in it. If you have a good reason, show me the reason. The reason is not in some book that was written 3,000 years ago. That's not a good reason. You have to have a reason in your own life to speak this way and be willing to talk about it. And Elena, thank you for the compliment. That's what we do in psychotherapy. We expose ourselves to one another. It's very intimate. It really is. It's partly sexual, it's partly intellectual. There's a whole revealing of one person to another, and it takes time. And at the end, we go around the whole thing, circumambulate reality, and we come back one turn of the screw more advanced, and if it works well, and then we're done. And that's all I'm doing now, except I'm not charging for it. I'm just showing you myself intimately, very intimately, because I don't lie. I don't say everything, but I don't lie. If I tell you I experienced something like I found myself awake, I am not lying to you. That's what the Buddha said. Why is it okay for the Buddha to say it, but Robert Saltzman, who's just a guy like the Buddha, can't say that? That's my question for these spirituality buffs. Simple as that. You want this 3,000-year-old guy to be a role model because he can't talk. And you can make up all kinds of stuff about him and put words in his mouth that he never said. And then you imagine that if you emulate that well enough, you'll come out on the other end enlightened. But what you're emulating is your fantasies. It's like I was telling you, Jeffrey, if somebody has the Buddha in his mind, that's him. That's the human person who reads this stuff and imagines this Buddha. But the Buddha was just a guy who took a shit in the morning. He had his problems and his fears. That's how it goes. And I'm just an old guy, won't be around much longer, who's willing to say to people, I'm awake, take it or leave it. And if you don't like it, ignore me. I mean, if you think I'm off or something, fine. Just, tune me out. It's a big world. You can cancel me. It's so simple. Just stop watching. Stop reading my books. Don't go to Depending on No Thing Facebook anymore or YouTube channel, and you won't be upset.
I so appreciate your honesty, and I feel like that is why your books work so well for me. I feel like I get it, that there isn't a distance between what you're trying to say and what you say, and I thank you so much for that. Both your books have worked really well for me to hear what you are saying. There seems to be no gap between that, and I think that's all about your honesty. I do appreciate it so much.
It's about your honesty. That's what we're talking about here. You read this and you say, gee, I feel that way myself. And some of these things are controversial, but you know, thank you. I mean, I understand the books are good and everything, but not everyone who reads them gets that. Some people read them and they don't get it. So I think I'm going to just reiterate, what you read is you, not me. All we have is our own understanding. I know this is I keep saying the same thing because it seems repetitive, but it's so simple. There isn't any way to understand something that you don't understand. There is no way to feel something that you don't feel. I can talk about love, and some people will say, I don't know what you're talking about. You know, there's no love. It's just a chemical reaction. It's only pheromones or whatever. Okay, that's not my experience, but if it is yours, good. You know. Well, I don't want to keep giving a talk here. John Troy, come on.
Yeah. My report is that the primacy of existence, the I thought is not the primacy of existence as assumed. And when that primacy loses its primacy of existence, then existence is seamless. All of it is seamless. All lock, stock, and barrel. The whole thing is seamless. And causation is systemic. And I kind of do it like Forrest Gump. My confession is I've gumped it, and it's all worked out really beautiful, but without a lot of contrivance to it, going with what wants to happen, and rather than the I thought being the primacy of existence, trying to run a show. That's what's worked for me, and that's very clear to me that if I read your work or Ramana Maharshi's work or whoever's, that is not the book, it's my own comprehension and understanding in that gets affirmed and realized to a greater degree when we find that with one another in fellowship. So for the idea of one self inside talking to another self, or one self inside controlling another part, is silly to me, because it's all seamless. It's not served up piecemeal. That's my report is I'm gumping it. And I mean, where I sit right now, I mean, it gumped into reality. Yeah, there was a little planning, there's that and the other, but things fell together like it wanted to happen. And there's an effortlessness about it. We were at a discussion last night that how I got into the bottling business. I had a string of peppers. It was on a post in the kitchen on a thread, and the peppers were strung on it. Beneath it was a blender that was built into the counter. During lunch, the thread broke and the peppers fell into the blender. Then I picked up the Lazy Susan on the kitchen table and threw a lot of ingredients in it that we liked and whizzed it up and tasted it and said, man, that's hot stuff. And that became my first product that led to food products, 500 different innovative food products in the world came from that thread breaking.
Wow.
That's a cool story. That's a cool story.
So it's sentience to me is all of it. I can't extricate any portion of it out of the total. It's not broken up piecemeal, or one part of my mind looking at another part of my mind and trying to discipline it or tell it what it can do to be better. And that, you know, for me, I've kind of thrown away models of behavior. It just, to be yourself is unique. We're a unique manifestation, a biological DNA manifestation. There'll never be another one exactly like we are, and for that to live and express and die is kind of a beautiful thing. It's like a flower blooming and dying. I see all this waking up stuff more as maturity. We grow, bud up, the bud breaks open, releases the scent. We bloom, bear fruit, mature. I don't see it's like something you get from outside our biological genetic structure. It triggers something. I don't see it that way at all. Maybe a few mushrooms.
maybe more than a few, eh?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But Forrest Gump.
Yeah. Michael Kobler, please jump into this conversation.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the sentient aspect of life. You know, I'm a technological guy. I'm really interested in techno. Oh, what's this? And Elon Musk recently said that he has a robot fleet of semi-sentient robots on the streets, and I was thinking about it. So maybe it's not only biological DNA entities who are sentient, but maybe machines are sentient, or tools even. And I don't know, from a perspective of an awakened state, maybe we can think about machines as beings. And when you think about perception as an illusory thing, which means that reality always is an illusion in the perspective, in the perception, it may be that machines only have this illusion. Their agent, or their driving autonomously is like a human experience, maybe from that perspective. I don't know, because things happen, and when cars driving by its own, you can maybe say that they're sentient, or half sentient, as Elon Musk would say. And growing up in this environment, and I think it's super interesting, and it's super exciting to me to have that experience, that we will talk to machines and cannot differentiate between a human being and a program or artificial intelligent robot. and in the future maybe we have the same discussion like we have now. Like, is Donald Trump awakened, or is this car sentient even? So
You're
these are
right.
my thoughts.
You're right, Michael. This is an interesting thing. Aren't there new bots that apparently can reproduce themselves, which are on the edge between machines and organic life? And the whole idea that we have of audiotronic beings. I used to make a joke about Ronald Reagan seeing him. I used to clean his swimming pool when he was governor of California. And I made up a story one time of how he drowned and died in the swimming pool. And they came from Walt Disney and they put his body in a truck and they took him away. And then he reappeared as an audiotronic being and got elected twice to presidency of the United States, but he was no longer, he was just a robotic creation of Disney World and nobody noticed. And everyone remembers some of these movies too, where the audiotronic people are hard, it's hard to distinguish between the organic life and the artificial life. You know, there are questions I think we need to pose in terms of what we think of what is consciousness, or as my friend John says often about the DNA. Do these things also have a kind of DNA?
Yeah, it's all programs which are in the DNA area. It's proteins which are synthesized and creating life as we know it, as a biological life. And in the machine world, you have program language, which is the block of life is a digital 0-1 sequence. And then they have also materials which they compose and start to move. So the question of consciousness is, I think we will never know about how this all is going on. And in the future, we have another layer of questions to think about.
That seems absolutely correct. I think I make a joke sometimes about having lunch with consciousness, and we talk about these issues, and consciousness itself doesn't really have an idea how it got there or what it really is, but it is interested in the question.
So, Michael, you're not on Facebook anymore, but yes? Or
yes, no, I'm actually I got offline pretty much everything. I have my YouTube channel, but I deleted my Twitter, Instagram, my Facebook, and mainly because of these questions I just asked. Because what my experience is that I am a very I don't know if it's correct in English, but I'm a very transient being. So I sometimes I experience to be an object, not in my regular life, but it happened. And sometimes I was in the state of feeling connected to the machine world pretty much when I was working in a corporate company. And I couldn't distinguish between myself as a body and the network which I was working with. So I am protecting myself to not lose myself into this metaverse, which is created now by Facebook. And I deleted consciously my profile to not distract me too much and to focus on my life, my family life with my son. And I love to work in my garden. I'm building a hut. I purchased a little plot next to it, and it's a little forest. And I pretty much love to work with the nature. not to switch to the to the technological sphere. I don't know, because the metaverse is really arising, and I'm that kind of person which could easily transcend. I don't know if it's correct, but yeah, I didn't want to lose myself.
Yeah, well, so I mentioned that because maybe 3 weeks ago, I came upon this new AI program. That's a writing program. You start it off with a few sentences, and it will just generate as much text as you want from that. So I wanted to give it a try, and I wrote a paragraph and let this thing have a shot at it, and it was spooky. It was really spooky. It wasn't like these old things that kind of just feed back what you were saying. This thing created this entire story that had a lot to do with where I might have taken it.
Wow.
And it kind of, it was spooky because it kind of picked up on my attitudes from that one paragraph, and could have written a whole book that way, starting with just one paragraph, and let this thing, and you can edit it, you can choose, and you can change words if you want to, but it was hardly necessary. And I posted that. So what that made me understand deeply is what you're talking about. Some of these people that I get into these hassles with on Facebook might be bots, for all I know.
Mm-hmm. I mean, this is our future. When we don't know if we communicating with a human being or with an algorithm.
Yes. What a time, huh?
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, I try not to get too much excitement, but I also invested some money in it, so I'm quite positive about it, actually. Also for humankind. I mean, this makes a new layer of existence, which brings us more together in some sense. I hope, or I guess, and questions about who we really are, what we do, may find a more human and less violent approach, maybe.
From your lips to God's ear.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, in the Matrix trilogy, the thing really goes out of hand, and we never know. I mean, in this pandemic, I struggle a lot because in the circle I am, I really see a lot of people really getting delusional about reality. And right now we have protests in Vienna every week against the government. And I also deleted Telegram because I was invited to groups which I couldn't, I didn't want to be exposed to. And I love your work, Robert, because I am able now to give them a vaccination for their minds and for the bullshit they talk about. And with the German version, it's even easier for me to hand over a book where all these delusions, which are pretty dangerous for our society, are may help.
I'm so happy to hear that, Michael. You know, when you were down here 2 years ago, it was just 2 years ago now. It was so great meeting you because you have such an open mind. your mind was entirely open when you were here. It was really lovely to meet you. And here you are 2 years later, and you're speaking so beautifully about these matters. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. What about you, Jeffrey? Can you comment on what we're discussing here?
I don't know a lot about artificial intelligence. I don't do a lot of reading about it, but I'm thoroughly enjoying the conversation.
Okay, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
It's okay. It's okay.
I'm just trying to get out of talking myself, rather listen.
Maybe I have a question for John. When the string broke and the pepper went into the blender, how do you relate to this experience? If, I mean, the blender is a machine, and how do you relate to what I have just said, that machines are not different from, as a being, from the DNA which we are?
I don't see that there's any such thing as artificial intelligence. It's just intelligence. And I've, for myself, in my life, the Gump factor was smooth building a massive manufacturing plant with huge machinery and technology, and it wasn't a bump between any worlds. It unfolded kind of like Robert's work is unfolding for him. Just unfolded, one thing led to another, to another, to another. If the string hadn't broken, none of that would have been. If that thread hadn't broken, it was not intentional. But that's, every little thing matters. So going with what wants to happen has been what's peaceful for me, and fun and exciting, and it allows me to segue from one part of life to another without contriving that I'm going to do this or that. Even my work today is what comes to me that I would service in response. So I may develop a new tempeh or a new mustard or some kind of new product, and all that comes naturally to me. And some are successful, some aren't. But that's kind of my life, is that the going with what wants to happen is really graceful. And we can watch it with Robert's body of work. It has its own integration in life, in doing, and just being honest and going with it. You know, who knows? It may flame out in a year, or it may be a classic. There's no way to tell. But I say the honesty mantra is the best, and part of that honesty mantra is going with what wants to happen. Mm-hmm. Here we are. Here's the situation. You know, rather than fretting that it wasn't what we may have contrived about something, letting it be and see what wants to happen with it. Mm-hmm. It takes, you know, patience, part of maturity, to not react to everything, but give it give everything a little running room, see what happens.
Yeah. What I hear from what you're saying is that you could have a theory about why the string was broken, and you try to fix it. And this is how I see what people in these groups which I was invited to do with. They see a thing which is broken, like now people getting sick from the virus, and then they get any theory about it and try to either ignore it or to fix it, and they don't go along with all the evolution of what we're experiencing, and they don't create something beautiful rather than contracting and projecting some evil thing on it.
Yeah. I mean, the big one now for a lot in the food industry is inflation, and the prices of vegetable oil have doubled. Prices of honey have doubled. I got a message this morning that chickpeas out of Mexico have increased 40% in price. And then, so rather than complain about that or fret about it, then we would look at a new retail price, because the tide's going up for everybody. And that's going with what wants to happen. You're not raising your price to make more money. It's just in sync with the tide, what's going on. But food prices are really going up. I mean, it's staggering. And not only the food, but the packaging. And you'll see it in 2022, the cost of foods will go up. So the idea is just to simply go with it. It's not really a choice. It's you price to stay viable and stay with it and accept the fact that inflation is here. We don't know how long it will last. But here in Jamaica, when we look around, the supply end of things getting stuff, it's kind of pulled back. There's not a lot going on. So different parts of the world can't catch up. They can't, containers move, it was just-in-time management all over the world and global trade. That's discombobulated. Ocean freight, to move a container from point A to point B is up 630%. That is staggering. What might have cost $10,000 to get a container from point A to B is $60,000 in 1 year. But that's a fact of life, and prices are going up, and you acclimate and go with it. So we have a new mustard we're coming out, and there's never been a mustard for over $10 out there. So my suggestion is go ahead and make it a $10 mustard and go ahead and break the glass on that price now. And then if you have to creep up from that, you started in double digits and you'll stay in double digits, because double digits is coming, on that.
Of course, the salaries of people are not inflating at the same rate as the cost of the goods, are they? There's something a little twisted in our global economic system, I would say. And you're right that you have to deal with it as well as you can, but I think a $10 mustard is kind of conservative. Why not go for $100 mustard and really give it a nice label and make sure that people know that they're going to get $100 result from a $10 mustard, and your sales should just go skyrocketing.
Well, it might scare them away. We want them to eat it every day.
There's a funny story a long time ago when the Soviet Union collapsed and people were able to buy a lot of goods, and two Russian guys together, and he says, this guy comes up to one guy and they always wore their brand new suits with the things on it and said, and here's my watch, and I just paid $500 for this Rolex right across the street here. And the other Russian says to this guy, says, you're an idiot. I know a place where you can get the same damn watch for $10,000.
But I hear you on the high price.
Robert, we have a couple of questions from the chat, one for yourself and one for John Troy.
Give John his first. I'm still resting.
All right, I will read it. It's from Stephanie DeLuca, and she asks, I like the concept of gumping it, but sometimes things don't go well, like when Robert broke his back and was in pain for a long time. So how does that fit into the hard times?
Yeah. Gump had a girlfriend that he loved and everything, and it's a beautiful love story. And in the end is really beautiful, even though she ran off with that other hippie and everything. All of that fits together into something really rich and beautiful. So what might seem like bad news, it's like we were talking the other day, the grief, it can be like a fine wine, an experience in life that's very deep, cuts deep. But we don't know what would work in our favor or wouldn't work in our favor when a situation comes.
That's right, John. Think about some guy who's been lusting after a woman for years, and finally she agrees to go off with him and get married. And then 10 years later, he's got this bitch of a wife in the kitchen yelling at him because whatever.
Yeah.
See, that's like this story about the Russian family with the one horse that I've told before, but I think I'm going to tell it now again, just to make sure. See, there's this father and son. He's an old widower. The wife's already dead. And they're impoverished. They've got this one horse that they use to plow their little plot of land. And one day the horse runs off. The kid leaves the gate open on the corral and the horse runs off. And the neighbor comes over and says, my God, that's a bad stroke of luck you've had. And the farmer just says, maybe. Well, next day the horse returns and he's got 4 wild horses behind him. They all run into the corral. The kid shuts the gate and now they've got 5 horses. Neighbor comes over again. He says, boy, you're a lucky son of a gun. Amazing. And the farmer says, maybe. Next day, the kid is trying to break one of the horses. He gets bucked off and breaks his arm. Same thing, the neighbor comes over. What a bad break. You've really got it tough. And the farmer says, maybe. Next day, the Russian army comes around conscripting young men into the army, and they see the kid with the broken arm and decide to just leave him home. And they just pass by, and the neighbor comes in and says, you're a lucky guy. You've got your son. The rest of us, all our kids have to go to war. He says, maybe. And this story is endless. You keep telling it until the lights come on. And this has been worked on people for years. And it's a really good thing to understand on this point that you were telling. I would never have wished for the broken back. And I'm sorry that I can't play golf anymore. I love golf, but that's out. So there was a loss there, but Anna was in a lot of pain. But I would be lying if I did not admit that there were some moments during those weeks of pure bliss, absolute freedom. when I was driven mad by pain, and all that just went away. And all this stuff that everybody's always seeking, it's just right there in front of you when you need it. You don't have to contrive, as John calls it. If you get into enough pain, you will transcend. That's just what happens. We're made for it. We're animals. We know how to survive. We've survived like this since little shoots, green shoots were coming out of this planet before there were any animals. They're just plants. And the plants evolved and became animals. And the animals were these tiny creatures. They're scared of everything at first, and gradually they progressed and started to interact with the environment. And we're really good at it if we just let ourselves be natural. That's all it takes, really. It's not that you don't get hurt or bad things don't happen or there isn't loss and sadness. Of course there is. I mean, this is organic life. What did you expect? But what someone like me, all the guys and girls, we're all guys. It doesn't matter what the plumbing is like. That's right. I see old school was Frank Sinatra and all that, guys' night out, you know, but we're in the 21st century now, and even an old guy like me can catch the wave. So we're all guys now. So what guys like me have understood, it's very simple. You can't fix it. Here you are. Do your best. It's not that hard. If you're willing to be sad and suffer, everything clarifies. You'll just do your best. No, nobody can take care of you. It doesn't work that way. When you're sad, you're sad. Some happy person can come around and say, there's nothing to worry about. Look on the bright side. You see? No, I'm sorry. And there's the psychotherapists you were talking about, the failure psychotherapists, they're like that. They try to cheer people up and fix them. And I never did that. What I would say to people is, really, tell me about that. Let's enter into that. That's parenthetical. Tell me about it. What was that like? What happened then? And when people are able to tell their stories and circumambulate them, we find that there's freedom. It's what John was saying. It's not contrived. It's a flowering. Yes, it doesn't happen to everyone, and that's sad. I'm sorry. I see ignorance that remains for a lifetime, like a Donald Trump. He'll never snap out of it. That's obvious. But a lot of us can be free. We really can. It's not that complex. And the reason that I'm always carrying on about spirituality is because that's a hypnotic trance. They promise you something that's not this. It's not where you are. And what I'm saying is, forget all that. Be where you are, even if it looks bad. At least it's you. At least you're starting. I mean, take the first step from there, not take the first step from what Rupert Spira told you was enlightenment. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't. If it works for him, great. I'm happy for Rupert. You know, he seems happy. He's got a nice wife and he gets paid to talk and everything. It's great. Nice. I don't envy that.
It's mostly hustling. They're making something out of nothing. That's what hustlers do.
That's right.
People, they take nothing, whether it's death or whatever, and make something out of it. Making something out of nothing. It's a hustle.
If I'm going to get paid to talk, I want to be a stand-up comic, not a fucking spiritual teacher. Fuck that. Just fuck that. Really, we need to snap out of this. That's so 20th century. It really is. All those dead Indians and everything, they were cool. They were cool in their time. They were cool in their time. I think they were. You know, I like Ramana Maharshi. He was nice. He was cool. But that's old school. It's too old now. What Michael was talking about is where we're at. There's intelligence everywhere, as John also said. We need to tap into that, not think that there's some special approach to living. That's bullshit. Find your own way, find your own mind. If it's making mustard and overcharging for it, mazel tov. Wow, what a rant. And that was John Troy's question. I wonder what my question is. I wonder what my I can hardly wait. But Ricardo, thank you so much for doing this. I love you so much, man.
Oh, I love you too, Robert. Feeling is mutual. The next question comes from our friend David Matt. And he says, Robert, you've said that our true nature is overshadowed due to the fact that we are overly concerned about how we are seen by others. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, I could. I don't know what I would say. Should I try it? Okay, I'll try. See, you can't be this way if you're trying to make an impression on the world. I'm a wise man. And you come to me and I will explain reality to you. And once I have explained it, you will have taken the first step towards enlightenment. And bit by bit, you will arrive in heaven. That takes a certain concentration and presentation. And I could make a living doing it if I wanted to. But I don't want to. That's the point. You're just getting Robert. And that's the value I have to bring to this world. If I take a picture and show it to you, it won't be like everybody's snapshots. I don't know what the difference is, but there is one. Everyone tells me there is, and I see it myself. And I feel that way about these words. They're not all correct, but they're all coming from a good place. They really are. And a lot of the words I hear on this subject are not coming from a good place, David and Matt. Not at all. They're hypnotic. They're hypnotic in just the way that I was demonstrating, where I just change my approach slightly and I become authoritative. And I'm not. No one is on your mind. You are the authority on your mind. I know that's scary. I get it. It's hard to be alone in the universe. There's no one there to fix it. It's all you. It's like I was saying to Jeffrey earlier, it's what you hear when I speak is you. I'm hearing it too, just like you are, and that is me. What I hear is me. You hear something different because when I talk this way, there's part of me that hears it and is slightly embarrassed. That's me. There's a slight difficulty in, pontificating and saying I'm awake. Yeah, that's difficult. But for me, it's more difficult to die without saying to the world, here's my little link in the chain that connects up to other awakened people previously, and there'll be other awakened people. And Robert won't be here anymore, see? And that's fine, because not being here is easy. There's no one to notice it. It's not a problem. There's no one there. That's what it means to not be. It's easy. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to try to come to some conclusion before that happens. Just relax, enjoy your life. And when nature says, you've been here long enough, Robert, okay. My friend Robert Hall, once we were talking about all this, and he died a really nasty death, I must say. He was ill for a long time. It was very sad. I used to visit him a lot. But before that happened, he must have had some prescience, because what he said to me is, "Oh, thank you, Ricardo. That's the lovely Robert K. Hall, a wonderful man, a generous man, a generous, wise being, perfect Robert Hall. I love this man very much. He was a big influence on me, taught me a lot. And I was very happy to have known him, really. Well, so one day Robert and I are talking, you know, we would talk a lot. And he said to me, I'm really afraid to die, Robert. I'm going to admit that to you. I'm afraid to die. The best intervention at that point would be, really? Tell me about that. But I wasn't, I was clever, and what I said to him was more of a quip. And I said was, dying is easy. You don't have to do anything. And that's true in its way. I'm looking into death right now deeply. I'm not ill, but I'm old. And when you get to a certain point in life, your body starts to teach you that it's going to be shutting down soon. It talks to you. See, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to try to be enlightened. Your body is its own renunciation. You don't have to give up sex and whatever else you enjoy. Your body is its own renunciation. You don't have to have a separate ego that renounces life and becomes purified and everything. That's all nonsense. John was right. It's just the flowering. That's what happened to me. I got old and started to see more deeply. That's all it is. It's not a big deal. And if you don't let anyone make a big deal out of it for you, you just wake up in the morning, and I would bet that you do that for 6 months and don't try to seek anything, and you'll catch the wave. It won't be that hard. You'll just see that it's much more relaxing to be normal. You don't have to be a spiritual hero. You don't have to climb every mountain. You don't have to live up to the great ancestors of the Zen tradition or whatever it is. It's not like that. It's just you. You're alone. No one's watching. They're watching from the outside, but they have no idea what's going on in your mind. No idea. And even if you sit with someone, as Elena and I did in the psychotherapy we did, and listen to that person for a long time with a deep desire to understand what she's saying, even then, you only get a little at best. Elena could talk to me every day from now until the end of time, and I would never really know Elena. I would know Robert. Robert's impressions of Elena is the best I can do. We only have our impressions of the world, is the point. That's what everybody's saying, except people want the impressions to be better. I don't want the impressions I have now. I want to wait till I have the Buddha's impressions, and then that'll be me. No, it won't. This is you now. You have no idea what you're going to understand in the future. The future is everything you don't know and can't imagine. You don't know it and you can't imagine it. And these people who babble at you about what it will be like for you are confusing you. That's my message. Wake up, snap out of it. Don't be hypnotized by high-flown ideas and words. They can't fix anything for you. Nothing. The only one who can fix it is you, your intention to awaken. I don't mean awaken spiritually. I mean awaken from this trance where other people's words describe you to yourself. That's not, I'm sorry, that's not it. It's really not it. You want to find out what your description of yourself is to yourself. And as soon as you notice it, hang out with that. Then at least it'll be about you. Otherwise, it'll just be someone else's story that you're trying to emulate. And that's the death of intelligence. As soon as you imagine the Buddha spoke perfect truth, all I have to do is tune that in, you're dead. Your intelligence has stopped functioning. I've gone on and on because this matters to me profoundly. It really does. It matters to me to see the human race so hypnotized. It does. with all this religious strife and all these people who believe in truth and all that. Terrible, terrible. It doesn't fit what we need as humans. That's the problem with it. We don't need beliefs. We don't need these beliefs that cause a lot of conflict all the time and make people feel that they're not good enough, so that they have to jump through somebody else's hoop. That's how this whole machine is running. That's where all the incentives come from. That's why the corporate people and the governments want you to be ignorant. They don't want you to know the truth. The United States is bullshit. It's been bullshit for a long time. They're telling these people stories, and the people can't quite make it. And the idea is the fault is yours because this is a free country and anybody can make it. No, not anyone can make it. If you have the right stuff to survive in that particular milieu, maybe you can make it. But it's not really a human country. It's 25th or so on the list of infant death and 19th in education and all the rest of it. But this big lie keeps, this is political preaching, but I'm going to stop. I'll give myself 15 more seconds. See, that's what I mean by embarrassment, because all these things I'm saying are true and they're good and they're worth expressing, except when I hear myself, yeah, after a while, I just can't do it. I have spoken.
But isn't that the need? That's why we feel, or at least why I felt, decades ago, that there was a need for awakening. That, putting, if you want to put it, like we're fish underwater and being, controlled by these various forces, which are all forces of greed and power and control. Like you say about that's why I emigrated from the U.S. I got tired of having my taxpayers, the money I paid as taxes, go to kill people that have never done me any harm. Why the hell should I spend the rest of living in the greatest country in the history of the world? But the only way I thought that there was is if the fish sticks its head out of the water, becomes more awake, then a lot of this identification with all of these structures would fall away and we could live more natural lives as adult human beings are supposed to do. At least it would seem to me that a natural creation would be aiming for something like that to evolve. But you're absolutely right. It's a desperate situation. We're killing the biosphere, we're killing all of this stuff. And still there's this, as long as you wave enough flags and drive your motorcycle down the streets of Sturgis, everything is okay. Well, it's not, because we're killing, destroying, not consciously, but unconsciously destroying the very fabric of the thing that will allow our grandchildren to understand what it is to hear a bird sing.
Yeah. So I'm a Mexican citizen now, and I've been living in this country for about, a long time, about 25 years. And this country has plenty of problems. All countries do. But the people here don't have that problem. Of course, some do. There are conflicted people everywhere. But for the most part, the citizens of this country are trying to make it work and all get along, not I want to destroy you because of what you believe about COVID or something. I mean, nobody's fighting the mask thing here. When we go into the supermarkets, we put the masks on, It's not
same here.
Yeah.
We have one of the richest countries in the world. There are a lot of things wrong with Switzerland, but the whole principle is that people, even though they have very different opinions, they have a kind of collectivity where they, in the end, we're pretty slow, slower than a Swiss watch, but they try to find solutions that will work for everybody. We got 7 political parties in the damn local council, and they're trying to make things better. And what I see with the US, it just feeds the dictatorships of the world, like in China and Russia, in India, Brazil, Turkey, and so on, Egypt. And it's really a sad thing because of the importance of the power of the US historically and what the dream was supposed to have been. And it's really very sad. And I'm sitting in a country with 8.5 million people who are trying their best to make a good life for most. And of course, you have all the underground stuff with the money and whatever you want, but still as a place to live where an ordinary person who works at a supermarket can live a decent life and have an apartment and a 4 weeks vacation a year and health care and a car. I mean, that's pretty nice.
Yeah. So this just happened down here. It was kind of cool. The president, Katanya and I both need COVID booster shots. Yeah, we have for a while because we were being old. We were the first ones down here in Mexico. Down here, they gave the vaccine to the old people first.
Yeah, here too.
Not because they love us so much, but to keep us out of the hospitals. So the bed, because this is a more limited situation than people in the US are mostly used to. We have to do our best with the resources we have down here, and we all know it, which is already an advantage. Well, anyway, they gave us the shots early, and so now I'm like 10 months into it, and after 6 months, you're supposed to get the booster. Well, the president said we're not giving boosters. This was like 2 months ago. So now Katanya and I are thinking, well, gee, now we're going to have to go up to the States to get the boosters, except I don't want to get on an airplane. That's a risk, flying up there with all these maniacs who rip the mask off as soon as they get in there and want to beat up the fucking air marshal because he told them to put it back on. I said, I don't want to be on a plane with those people. So we think, well, we could drive, but it's 3 days to the border from here, 3 days long drive. And so we just did nothing. Wu Wei, we just do nothing. And a few days ago, they announced there's plenty of vaccine and we're going to start shooting people up with it if you had your vaccination back in April, like we did, March and April.
Well, that's cool.
So today I signed up for it.
Good.
And Monday we have the appointment to get it. And it's like, but everybody's pulling in the same direction here. There's nobody, everybody's going to go get this. It's not like there's this big argument going on down here. Should you be vaccinated or not? People are just happy to be vaccinated. They're happy to put on a mask. They're happy not to infect other people and be infected themselves. That's the normal Mexican will feel that way. And they won't imagine that they're expressing their freedom if they sneeze in your face or something. I mean, this is crazy what's going on there. And it's just an example of what I'm talking about. Is people are just, their minds, they don't see. They're hypnotized. They just don't see it. Yes.
Right. There is a need for awakening. I mean, this is true. And it is just a higher level of perception, a little higher vibration. Not better, but somehow you have been describing the examples of what happens when that natural being doesn't come forth, when you can't, being yourself is not being part of this motorcycle gang that thinks if you take an injection, your DNA is going to be monitored and there's a chip inside your nose somewhere, which is telling you to obey the government. I mean, it's a little bit strange, isn't it? It's like science fiction.
Oh, God. Yeah, the problem is, from my point of view, that there's nothing I can do about it. There's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can do to dispel even a gram of this confusion. You know,
that's the basis of frustration, Robert. You have to accept it.
Yeah, you were involved in all these millennial organizations that thought we were going to get this all together with raised consciousness, right?
I saved the world at least 3 times in the last 40 years. But it was sort of like the difference between Kensho and Satori. Some of them, the world saving didn't last too long, you know. Maybe that was the problem. No, but that was the only thing I could think of, because when I was in Big Sur in the late 60s, I began to see the smog coming from LA and San Francisco at the same time, and see the rise in the traffic, see the change in the entire dynamic. And I was in a place like you were in Todos Santos before it got more famous, I could live it out there. It would be cool. And then I thought, well, I could do it, but why not give it a try to see if we couldn't actually solve the problem? Okay, so I gave it a try. It didn't work. I emigrated, did various things. And so, yeah, sometimes things work, sometimes they don't, but we did give it a shot, as you do with your work. Your work is not because you don't have anything else to do,
Well, you know what? I don't really actually feel that way about my work. Maybe someone else will, and that's cool. For me, it's just what I'm doing.
Sure.
I don't really imagine that. I mean, it may have a good influence. That's what Jeffrey was asking me about before, what I thought about how his reading my books may have improved his middle of the night blues. Right, Jeffrey? That was pretty much.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That's the truth. So when I say something, it's not that I'm just expressing what I see. I see confusion and a hypnotic trance with certain people who are not hypnotized. Like I run into John Troy. John invited me and Catania to join a gathering of his friends. And John is really generous. He's done well in business, so he'll rent a big house in a beautiful place and invite all his best buds to come there, and they play music and make dinners together. And it's a gathering. It's great. It's beautiful. Anyway, John invited me and Catania. We were the only outsiders, I would say, in this group. Well, we have to fly to North Carolina, Raleigh-Durham Airport. We fly in there. It's a beautiful airport. It's just an amazing structure. Anyway, we walk away from the gate down into the reception lobby, and there's John Troy. The moment I laid eyes on him, I knew this dude was cool. It didn't take me more than 5 seconds. That he wasn't hypnotized. He was completely there. It was just completely there in this crowd of robots, as you were saying, Michael. There's really a lot of human who might as well be robots. They don't seem to catch the vibes.
That's what asleep means, isn't it? Or hypnotized means. Yeah.
Yeah. So this little corner of the forest where I'm climbing up this little vine to the top of the tree and going, yeah, which almost no one visits. It's dark over here. This is not the National Football League or Hollywood. We're just on our own over here. And that's important to understand. It's not that big a deal, really. None of it is. I'm just doing my thing.
Right. But the point is that you are doing your thing.
Yeah,
that's what makes you, right?
Yeah, I'm doing it, but I guess I'm speaking this way because I got all these talks about these. I got all these messages about these meetings are great. You should do this once a week, Robert. Then we can all come and discuss these things.
Yeah, every morning at 6:15, you should have a little program, right, around the world. No, you're right. Make it sporadic. In the Tao, it doesn't work like that, right? This is great to do it this way, and then hell, we got other stuff to do too. You only got a few years left, Robert. Your donkeys, they need your attention. You can't spend it all with us.
Yeah. Anyway, that'll really hook them. In psychological research, they found out, like if you give a lever to an animal, and every time the animal hits the lever, a little pellet rolls down and they eat it. That's one thing. If you get them addicted that way, and then you stop so that sometimes the pellet coming down does come down, and sometimes they can tap 1,000,000 times and nothing happens, that is the addictive space for a human. That's how all these casinos with their slot machines are set up. Sometimes they pay off, sometimes they don't. That's the one that really gets people started. So if I do the sporadic meetings, we'll really have them fucking hooked.
They're goners. That's why I don't feed my birds every day, you see? I let them come by in the cold and the snow and say, Sterling, what the fuck's going on? I thought there was supposed to be lunch day at 11 o'clock.
I love this feeding of hawks on the deck. That is so beautiful. You've been sending me these photographs. I should tell everyone of your hawk visitors having breakfast on your deck. And it is really, it's something to see. They are beautiful animals.
Maybe I can post a few of those pictures on the dome thing and people can take a look. They are, it's really the most marvelous thing to see them come in and to see how they work. And it's just, no, it's when I'm looking at the computer and I can turn around and there's a hawk, standing there, and or two, the little one and the big, and a different variety. And it just blows your mind completely away. And then, then I have to deal with what we call reality once in a while too.
Yeah, that's what John Troy calls critter love.
Well, anyway, we have funny stuff that way. Yeah, people look on my Facebook page. I think it's open there. There's a picture. This one guy looking me straight in the eye from about 2 meters away. And I captioned it. It says something like, "Oh, Sterling, it's so cold out here and I'm really hungry. I really appreciate your brunch buffets," something like that, because it's just wonderful. That's all.
The thing is that when we talk about the natural self, we're that way too. We're really innocent. There's a layer on top of it that's learned behavior. But when I look in myself, there's a little child in there. The child's fascinated by the world. Fascinated. That's how I photograph. I go out and wow, look at that. And I want it,
Right. And there's no you there at all. Right. There's just
right.
Wow.
That's right.
That's what I was trying to say earlier, is there's just, when you're in that space, it's just the wow. There's nothing else there.
That's it. That's really it. That's a very creative, what you call creative space. There's no one creating anything. It's
right.
Just the space. It's just the space. It's amazing. It's beautiful.
Listen, I should leave at this moment, and I just wanted to thank all of you people, especially I haven't seen Michael before in real life, so to speak, and it was a real pleasure. Elena and Jeffrey, I don't see him here on my little screen, and of course Methuselah is still there. He's managed to stick it out for us for a while. I gotta enjoy,
I enjoyed meeting you, Sterling.
You too, man. It was really a real pleasure. Absolutely. Okay.
Nice meeting you, Sterling.
You too, sweetheart. You're just lovely. Lovely. Okay. You all take care. So just thank you very much for being who you are.
Thank you for visiting, Sterling. Thank you for taking part. Really appreciate your words. Very good.
Very much so.
All right.
Take care.
Be well, man.
You too, man. Okay.
Bye bye. Well, see you.
Wow. Screen changed. Wow. My screen now has everyone across it. Before. So this is what you were talking about, Michael. Those were just a series of ones and zeros, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, I was in the summertime. I was living in my cabin in the garden, and the deers would visit me in the morning, playing in the meadow, and I can feel Sterling when he's feeding the hawks, because animals bring this wow effect immediately, so you don't have to think at all.
So back in the Taos, New Mexico days, when Catania and I were pretty fresh and new, we used to eat peyote in the morning for breakfast and then go out walking. So we ate some peyote and we were walking up in the hills, and we had a blanket with us, and we put the blanket down and just sat there. And we were just really quiet. you kind of stoned, just feeling it all. And one by one, all these wild animals started showing up to watch us. It was really amazing. It was an amazing event. There was a snake, there were deer, there were some small rodents, and they were all they became curious. They were all watching us. It was amazing.
I think it's.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's curiosity, which is the main driver of life or evolution, however you would call it. A few weeks ago, I was with my psychiatrist and talking to him, and I was really worried about my mental state. And then he just said, you know, Michael, I think really you are really curious. And that was it. I mean, it was just that information about my inner child, that there is curiosity, and I'm curious, and if I go along with that, I'm fine, you know.
Well, the thing that I have seen in you, which I guess is similar to what your psychiatrist was saying, you seem to have the desire and the ability to come very close to the edge of the canyon and look into it and see what's in there that other people aren't that interested in investigating. And you just have, I mean, it's a talent, but I understand it could be difficult, but you know, that's what you do. You have the courage to look in places that other people prefer to just, no.
Yeah. I mean, people don't see it on the screen, but I think it's 7 feet or like 2.10 m, and I have this point of view which almost nobody has, and maybe this is just me.
It is just you. It is just you.
Yeah,
it's all you. I know that sounds simple, right? That sounds like a trope, but I'd recommend looking into, not you, but in people who are watching this on YouTube or something, just try that idea out. This is all me. Everything I see, think, feel, hear, fear, desire, it's all me. It's all me. You've kind of touched on this in the sense that what we perceive is a version of something unknown to us. We don't know what the algorithm is that translates whatever's really there into what we perceive. But it's obvious that there is some kind of algorithm. The brain works in a certain way. It makes color out of just energetic vibrations, for example. We know that much. So we don't actually see the world as it is. We just see a movie. But the spiritual people go too far with that. They think, oh, well, then it's just a movie, so I don't have to be responsible to the people I love or whatever it is. And that is where they lose the plot. It's that simple. Right on that turn, they spin out, they've lost the plot. The point is, yes, it's a version, but it's the only version you get. So now what do you want to do?
Mm-hmm. And once you see the algorithm or the mechanism of perception, you're awake. I mean, then you know it.
Yes, you say this is an algorithm, but it's all I get. This is what I do. I'm not describing what you do. What I do is I understand that it's impossible to not be deluded to a certain extent. Life, our perceptions are delusions in a sense. In a sense, they're not. But we're only seeing one version. We're not seeing reality. We have to pretend that what we see is reality and deal with it. Otherwise, we go nuts and end up, as U.G. Krishnamurti said, singing merry melodies. So what I observe in you is that you are willing to say, I could be really confused, but I'm willing to look into this and see what it is. And see, I consider that a very creative play space. I think you're fortunate. It may be hard at times to feel a bit nuts. I get that, but I think you're really fortunate.
I'm creative. I do art, so sometimes I just be in this state and play with the colors and making art with it.
Well, I had a teacher in therapy school who worked with schizophrenic people entirely. And he was talking about it, and one of the students asked him a question, and this guy said, they're crazy, they're schizophrenics. Of course they're crazy, but I love their images. Well, so the implication was that he was normal, but I'm not too sure about that. See, I think it's pretty hard to decide once we're talking on this level of what's real and what isn't, to judge who's normal and who isn't. Some people who are normal, they would say they're normal. To me, they look like they're stuck. They look like, for them, being normal is like there's mud all up to their waist and they can't even walk. But they're normal because they can do it all. You know? And someone who's more creative like you, it's only a definition to say that's bizarre. It's not bizarre, it's you. Like when you say that the world is just an algorithm, just a machine, or that a machine is as human as a human, but just in a different way. It's consciousness is conscious. Most people would shrink away from that entirely. Entirely.
What do you mean by that, shrink away?
They don't want that idea.
Ah, yeah, sure.
They don't want the idea that, yes, the thermostat only has one function. It keeps the temperature where you set it. If it gets too hot, it shuts the boiler down. If it gets too cold, it turns it on. But maybe that is consciousness.
Yeah, we don't know.
We don't know. And we don't know what the thermostat feels. What if it feels? Say it again.
It just occurs to me that it is action based on perception, correct?
Is this you, Ricardo?
Yes, it is. I'm
Oh,
just about the
I got
thermostat.
confused.
I was just talking about the thermostat.
Yeah, what if the thermostat feels this is really a boring job they gave me? It's like if I were a human, I'd be an elevator operator in one of those buildings where the elevator's automatic and the guy's just there to push the buttons with white gloves. See? Yeah, that's the one. That's the one, Michael. That's the one. Yeah. See, we don't know what anything is. Elena's going to sign off.
Yes, I'm sorry, but I need to leave. It was lovely seeing you all. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. I hope we get together before you have to leave, but if not, mwah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very
Thanks,
nice to meet you.
You too. A pleasure. Bye, John. Bye, Michael.
Bye.
See you again. Bye.
Thank you.
Well, what do you all think? Have we said enough for today? Or there's more to unravel?
My battery is down to 3%, so I could flip out at any minute.
Okay. Good to see you, John.
Yeah.
Maybe tomorrow. you can log on again.
Yeah,
Great, perfect. I'll send you the links.
all right.
Bye.
It was
Take
nice
care,
to see you
John.
again.
Enjoy that
Goodbye.
Jamaica sunshine and what do they call it? Acapulco Gold? No, that's Mexico. Whatever are you smoking down there? Bye, John. Love you.
Hi, John.
Well, you two carry on for just a moment. I have to take a pee, but I'll be back.
All right.
Okay.
Michael, where are you?
I'm in Vienna, in Austria.
Vienna. Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice. What do you do there?
At the moment, I am layouting a book and doing a cover.
Nice.
Yes, I'm parenting my son, and I have a garden, and I'm working in the garden.
Lovely. That book in Robert's room, that's yours? You designed it?
Yeah, a friend of mine translated it to German, and I made the layout and the cover with the
Okay.
photograph of Catania. Robert,
Oh, that's Catania.
Kaplan.
Oh, nice.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That's beautiful. From here.
And I haven't seen you before. Are you? Since when are you familiar with the work of Robert?
I'm familiar with Robert's work just from reading his books. I saw him on the Back Gap interview was the first time, and then I purchased the books, and then the second book, and that's my background. In the early 70s, I learned TM, and I went to their college, and for 40 some years I've done that kind of stuff. And Robert, it wasn't just the middle of the night blues that you've affected, but that was the example that I used. But it was many. It's pervasive, and be hard to tell you how much different things are. But deep heartfelt thanks to you.
Well, thank you for saying that, Jeffrey. I knew that. I understood what you were saying. I like to keep it light, because it's really inside of you, all of it. It's nothing. It's just that when you come across certain ideas,
Yeah.
they can open that. It's like shining a light somewhere where you've never actually shown that before. It's more like that, Ideas. I mean, that's how it happened for me also. This kind of awakening to a greater, wider horizons, let's say, wider horizons. It happened to me through the influence of other people. And I think that's pretty much what does happen. It's like some of us are here for a time and speak this way, but we're really disposable. The next one has to, Robert passes on. The next person speaks the same ideas. That's because these ideas are perennial. I mean, the idea of perception and oneself and the mystery of it all, no one's ever going to figure this out. We'll never get to the bottom of it. Science doesn't have the right stuff they may explain every physical principle. Science might be able to explain every physical change that takes place in the brain, every biochemical, down to the smallest molecule. But I doubt they will ever explain how the sense of being an experiencer can arise.
And that, Robert, is new to me from you, coming from the tradition of Maharishi and the college and all that stuff. They had a quite different idea that there is somebody knows these answers, and if I'm on the path long enough, I might, if I'm lucky enough, get there. So that's where you're the iconoclast that I really hear that and love that, and I like the idea that it's me, it's my mind I've got to be focused on, not anybody else's. That's I don't know. That's a gift that's kind of hard to even talk about.
Yeah, thank you. Well, David Matt, who asked a question earlier on the chat, grew up in Fairfield, Iowa, as part of the Maharishi thing. Is that
Yeah.
your experience? Were you in Fairfield also?
Yes, sir. I graduated from that college. I got married in that chapel.
Oh,
Yep. Yep.
Well, so I seem to have something to say to people who have been through that experience. I think it's that simple. And what I have to say is really simple.
And profound and powerful.
Yeah, I think it is profound in the sense that it's simple. I mean, things can only be profound if they're simple. If something requires too much cogitation, it's not really profound. Then it's just like mental gymnastics. So what I think about all that Maharishi stuff is that's what I call a hypnotic trance. It's a hypnotic induction to be given a mantra and be told. And yes, it might calm your mind, and that's nice. And when you have a calm mind, you may experience a lot of beautiful things. I understand that. It's attractive. And but somehow, just for me, it didn't cut it ever. I mean, I just knew about that stuff, but I never practiced it. I heard about it.
It's the same background that Rick Archer came from.
Yeah.
And many other people. But
Rick just kicked me off that gap.
I know. I was pretty disappointed about that.
Yeah, that was kind of petty, I would say.
Yeah, shocking.
He said I crossed a line because I told someone who was talking bullshit to fuck off. That's what it came down to. She was accusing me. She said, "You just want to be right." And I said, "No, that's not why I'm saying these things. It's not because I want to be right," which was accurate. I don't care if I'm right or wrong. I have no choice. I have to say what I say. She said, "You just want to be right." I said, "Oh, fuck off and stay fucked." And he said that crosses the line. You're out.
I watched his interview with Judy Cohen, who I met through you. Then I tuned her in there, and he was pretty, he interprets everybody through his own background and his thing, the thing that I share with him, that background. He interprets everything through that and filters it through that. That's his algorithm.
Yeah, get it. The idea is that you and Brahman are one, and eventually you're going to know that through this practice. Well, I think that's true in the same sense that I was saying it's all you. Yeah, I mean, actually, those are two perspectives, verbal perspectives, on what for me is an actual experience. I'm not believing it because the Maharishi said it or something, and I didn't meditate in order to arrive at that, although I have meditated. I mean, we all have tried it, at least. No, I just understood that I'm alone in the universe because there's no one else who can understand everything I'm thinking and feeling, ever. I can talk about it, like Michael and I we agree on a lot, but we could start talking from now until the end of time and never fully grok one another. There's just no way to do it. And once I understood that and understood how alone I was in the universe, it started to dawn on me, I'm not doing this. I just find myself here. I'm aware. Whatever I am, I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from, where it's headed, what it's made of. It's just, and I can't stop it. I can't flip the switch. I mean, maybe with some chemicals, if enough of it, you can become unconscious. But other than that, or you're lucky and fall off to sleep and get a full night's rest. You don't want to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning for that reason. Because when you're asleep, you don't have to deal with any of this myselfness. You're just asleep. It's cool. If you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start to think, this pain I'm having, I wonder if it's cancer. See, that's no fun. That's no fun. the thing that I have discovered is if that's there, there's nothing for it but to notice it. And eventually it changes into something else. Nothing stays there forever unless you force yourself to keep on picking at the wound or something. Other than that, it heals. Takes time, maybe. So
Yeah, I noticed too how fast thoughts are gone. They barely last. Many of them don't last a full second, I think.
yeah,
The whole thing is gone, and it feels like at the time, oh my God, but it isn't. It really isn't.
so this is what people say: if you don't like the weather, just wait and it will change.
Mm-hmm.
So we could say that on the emotional level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
I only have to deal with this moment now, and the next moment will be something else. It may be similar, like a movie frame of the same. If you ever seen a film strip, movie film strip, I used to edit them. If it's the same scene, the subsequent frames will each look like the previous one, but not entirely. If there's any motion at all, each one is slightly different. But then sometimes there's a jump cut where you're in another scene entirely, and that one doesn't look like the frame right there. That can easily happen. It happens to us all the time. You're driving down the street and you're thinking about paying your mortgage or something. Some dog runs out on the road and you hit the brakes and you say, wow, I'm really here. And the mortgage was forgotten. That was in the last frame. Now I'm in this new frame, right? I think, see, that's what, these things are obvious. I may be pointing them out, I get that, but there's no great discoveries here. I mean, this is the way we are.
And it was the confusion. It was the I'm sorry. It was the confusion of thoughts that I was asking about earlier. When you jump to the conclusion that's completely not true, what is that all about? Is that just confusion of thoughts? And then you run with that, and then that's your.
What's an example of something that's not true that you might think?
That's it?
No, what isn't it? I'm not, I don't understand quite what you mean about thoughts that aren't true.
Well, like I'm going to, I woke up at 3 a.m. I'm fucked. Tomorrow is going to be horrible. I won't be able to get through the day. I'm a bad person. I shouldn't have had the coffee late. On and on and on. Just kind of, they're not true. None of them are true, but they are there, and they're kind of habitual, and they feel bad. They're kind of, they put you in a bad spot.
Yeah. Well, how I like to deal with that nighttime thing, because you do sleep less as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. I've got my phone there with an earphone, and I like to listen to a boring podcast instead of my own reflections, and soon it will put me to sleep. But that's just my, that's a distraction. Because I don't have a mantra that I can chant, see, so I'd rather just occupy the time up. Yeah. We're just human. When we realize that and stop trying to be something more than human, everything clarifies and becomes relaxing. Everything becomes much more relaxing. It's okay to be upset. It's okay. Yeah. Yes, you can get through it, however you do it. Get up and eat a banana, listen to a podcast, I don't know, but whatever. Maybe read a book that might put you to sleep. A boring book. Find the most boring book you can find. Start reading it. Not one of mine. I don't know. That's my confession. I'm just a human, an ordinary awake human. And I think there have been many people like me. I know there have. And they talk the same way. And some people understand what they're talking about and other people don't. It's the same thing. That's what we got going on now. I met someone like me. He didn't say the things that I'm saying, but he was honest with himself in the way that I'm honest with myself. And so he talked from what it's like you were saying, when you read my book, there's something about it that makes you think, yeah, this needs to be taken seriously. I mean, there's something going on here. I met this guy and he talked to me that way for a period of time, and it definitely rearranged my molecules. Of course, I think that was your question, kind of. We do influence one another. How that happens is mysterious to me. I don't know what makes it happen, but yeah, of course. But you see, it's still all you, because someone else picks up the same book, they read one chapter and say, nah, this doesn't move me at all. I'm not interested in this. I want something else. So we don't know. You see, that's.
It's a resonance. When you resonate with it, then you pick it up. And if you don't resonate with it, you won't pick it up, or even discard it actively. If there is a dissonance or something. So I wanted to elaborate on the what we discussed before, that to be honest, because I was meditating in the Vipassana tradition many times. I did dozens of or like a dozen of retreats there with the Goenka tradition. And one day I went to the teacher, to the assistant teacher, and I asked if he's enlightened, because this is what they teach. They teach enlightenment. And he said, I think there is no one enlightened. He started laughing and he said, no, he's not enlightened, and he thinks there's no one person in the world is enlightened. And I wondered, so what are we doing here then? Why are we meditating?
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't honest. He just didn't talk to it, and I was by my own again and had to continue to practice. And one day I stopped meditating because I didn't see anything in it anymore. And the difference is that you, Robert, you just said honestly that you are awake, but as the teachers said, there is no one enlightened. He could have said, you know what? I don't know. He could say, what is it? What is enlightenment? That would be more honest.
Yeah. Well, when I say I'm awake, I'm not really making any claims. I'm just trying to use a word that means I'm not hypnotized. I've seen the hypnotic trance. It dissolved. All this trance of becoming, the trance of transcendence is what I call it. That's a hypnotic trance that you will be able to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Sounds good, but actually it's a physical impossibility. You can't pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. All you can do is you'll just hurt your back if you pull hard enough. There won't be any.
And many people are trapped in it. So when you meditate, you are open. You really get open when you sit and meditate, and you're open. And then after the meditation, they pour some doctrine in it, in this open ways, and you think that this is it. In reality, you're getting hypnotized.
Yes, because something is offered that's better than this. That's why you're doing the meditation. We're on a program here. This is a beginner over here, and now that I've been meditating for 10 years, and I can sit there for 4 hours, even if my legs do hurt, or whatever it is. That's not an attainment. That's just an habituation. It's okay if someone likes it. If they want to sit there on a cushion and spend their life staring at a wall, that's okay. I mean, we all have to do something. I don't actually put it down, but I don't think it leads anywhere. And I think if someone can meditate without imagining that I'm going to get something out of it, then that would be real meditation in the best sense. where you sit, you just sit. There's nothing to gain, nothing to lose. Why I meditate? Because I'm here, I have to do something. That's okay. If somebody can do that, then you might have a peaceful being, one of these Maharishis that said, oh, that's fine. It's the ones who preach, telling you how great their life is and all that. No, it isn't. You're a human. You suffer just like we all do. And when you say you don't, and you lie to your students, then you put them on a big trip and they can't get off the trip until, I mean, maybe Jeffrey got off the trip a little by encountering me, but that's just good luck if that's what happened. Lightning may not strike. I mean, once you become hypnotized and buy this doctrine, what's going to snap you out of it? It's all self-confirming, self-hypnotic belief. There's no, there's no internal inconsistency to snap you out of it. Yeah. Well, look, you two, I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
Michael, I have another meeting coming up later. It'll be late for you, but if you could make that, would you come to another meeting, or it's too late?
Today it's too late. It's here. It's 10:30 p.m. So I will go to my bed.
Okay, it's really great seeing you. Thank you so much for showing up.
Thank you for inviting me, and it was a pleasure to see you all again. And yeah, and I'm looking forward to watch the other streams.
Okay.
Nice
great.
to meet you, Michael.
Sweet dreams, Michael.
Robert,
Yeah.
I will see you tomorrow night. I'll be on the call.
Oh, yes, tomorrow you'll make the final
Yes,
meeting?
of course. Yep.
That'll be great to see you, Jeffrey.
Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Bye-bye, you all.
Much love.
Bye-bye.
Ricardo, I'm going to keep the meeting going so you and I can talk a bit after these cats leave. Stop recording. I hear you, but I don't see you. Can you? Okay, I got it. So that worked great on my end here. Didn't seem to be any dropouts or any difficulty at all. Excellent. Well, I'll see you back here a little before 5 p.m. Yes. Yeah. Thanks a lot, man. I will. Bye-bye.
Recording stopped.